Wowie wow! We've got a new hot sauce for you.
It's so delicious.
It's spicy.
It's spicier for sure.
Spicier. It's called Harvest Moon, made with ghost peppers, American persimmons,
and spice bush berry.
It's gonna be great. We also have t-shirts available. Brand new t-shirts.
The best t-shirts, I think.
Baseball tees.
Scrumpers United.
If you've collected apples, if you've collected fruit, you're
welcome to the club.
You're welcome to a club. You're a scrumper. So check out our merch store, wildedibleworldpod.myshopify.com. Wowie wow! We're coming at you with another true podcast today. This is the Wild Edible World podcast. I'm just one of your hosts. My name is Michael.
And I am Steve. We are here to show you where to find the sweetest honeys.
The sweetest honey locust.
Honey locust, of course. Yeah.
But it is a honey substance on the inside. But yeah, terrifying on the surface, but it's got a sweet, delicious inside.
And Michael's been going so hard on these honey locusts like the last few weeks. I feel like you've been preaching the gospel.
Yeah, I've been an outspoken, supporter of the honey locust. They're pretty underappreciated, especially when we're in like a really sugar-aligned country.
Yeah,
we
love
society
our
in general. We love our sweets, and
yeah.
the fact that a lot of people don't really think about this, or what I've seen in some of my comment sections too, is that people are being told that this is a toxic plant or that it's poisonous. But as we know in the foraging community, sometimes mom and dad will say that about anything just to not worry about it.
Yeah, so. You won't go blind. Just keep doing it.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Oh, jeez. So I managed to grab a couple different specimens of honey locust. We're going to try on the first half and kind of talk about the differences and what they look like. And across North America, you're going to find this tree just like everywhere.
Everywhere, just like sprinkled about.
Everywhere. Yeah.
I'm sure they used to be way more plentiful because to someone who like raises livestock or just has animals in their yard that could eat this sort of thing. It's a huge, very valuable tree. It supports all sorts of wildlife and not so wildlife. So I imagine that this was way more plentiful. And then once things started to getting a little bit more urbanized and pockets of people popping up everywhere, these trees are just kind of like sprinkled around a bit.
Yeah, well, they've become like a really popular roadside tree for some reason. I'm not really sure why,
I don't know why
that
either.
is.
Yeah.
But at least here in the Chicago suburbs, we have tons of them. It's kind of the winter equivalent to mulberry trees, where it's like you can look at the ground and where you just see a bunch of smashed stuff. That's probably going to be a honey locust in your area. Maybe a Kentucky coffee tree pod. So let's talk a little bit about the physical appearance of this tree in winter to help people just like driving around see it, and how to distinguish it from something like Kentucky coffee tree bean pods, which are pretty similar and will look kind of similar in the wintertime. So honey locust is a pretty tall tree. It's not very old growing, so it doesn't like last a very long time. But there are I think it's anywhere between like 70 to 140 years old or something.
Yeah, yeah.
So
right,
not
right
like
in that range.
The longest living tree, but
I think they reach their maturity somewhere around like 25, and 25 to like 75 is when they're like kicking out those pods.
Peak.
And then they slow down a bit. But I was doing a little bit of research, and I think the biggest tree is like 247 inches around, and that's a massive honey locust.
Yeah.
And then like 100 feet tall.
Yeah, not small trees by any means. And there are so many cultivars that have happened throughout, America's history, European colonization, and then in the indigenous use of this plant as well. Like there were so many cultivars, and they're still kind of like roaming around. So I'm not going to try to dry the well of mulberry parallels, but it is like every tree is different. I picked from 3 different trees in like a 5-block radius, and they're
all so different.
They're very different in color and size, but all the trees were relatively the same. So where I was going with the cultivar thing is that in the wild, you're going to find these things covered with thorns.
Yeah, gnarly thorns too.
Oh, the most violent tree you've ever seen. It is up the trunk. It's bursting out its pores, just thorns everywhere. It's impressive. And those have their own variety of uses in like clothes fastening and like sewing, or even in like they're hypodermic. So you could technically, if you could find the right ones, you could use them to help stitch wounds, to pick your teeth. There's like witchcraft uses. Like I know people that sell them on Etsy for witchy stuff. I don't know what that is, but yeah. So there's a lot of thornless cultivars. Most of what you're going to find on the side of the street, or that has been intentionally planted by your city, is a thornless variety.
Which is good for everyone, because those are also just like jacked in sugar content.
Totally fine. Yeah. Absolutely. It's kind of like a unintended byproduct, because they're certainly not breeding them for sugar content. But I have heard a few people tell me that they think they're way too bitter, and I think that could be the region or the tree, but they also live a lot further south than me. So it could be that they weren't ready yet, because I'm telling you, I grabbed these today, and it is January 29th.
Yeah.
It's almost February. These things have been maturing since last year. Several of them I picked up off the ground and have been marinating underneath the snow for 2 or 3 weeks.
Sure.
On top of that. And they're great.
Yeah.
So as the wise Alexis Black Forager says, you got to let the ground season them a little bit. And she's absolutely right. You got to give it a second, be a little bit patient. But that's the cool thing about winter foraging, there's still so much stuff.
Sure. So we got the thorns. What do the leaves look like?
Leaves have about 20 leaflets. So they are, what is that called? Pinnate or compound or pinnate, pinnate leaves?
Pinnate. So bipinnate to when they're young, and then pinnate when they're older. So they look kind of ferny, right?
Yeah, kind of ferny. Yeah, they're beautiful, honestly.
Oh, yeah.
I love the leaves, and they look a lot... that is an easily distinguishable trait in the summer, too, so being able to see them there. And they also look kind of like black locust.
Yeah, similar. Same family.
They're all in the same family. They're cousins. The pods of black locust aren't as tasty.
No.
From what I understand, only the flowers, and I've only tasted the flowers of black locust. Have not tasted
flowers
those.
Are so good.
They're one of the best. We'll go over that this year whenever it happens, because it is a sweet and short season. But with honey locust, the season is all year round, honestly.
For sure.
So not only are the beans or the pods delicious in the winter, but the wood is really useful wood for construction, for building stuff, for bows. So it's got the right give, it's got the right hardness for a variety of applications. It gives off good heat when you burn it, so it's very good burning wood too, which is important. And I don't know. I guess it was only a couple years ago that I learned that not all wood is good for burning.
Yeah.
Right?
Who knew?
There's better wood.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I still don't know. I don't know what wood works best.
Yeah, I don't know. So maybe we should taste. Do you want to taste some?
Yeah, let's taste some.
Or do you have anything else? Is there anything else we should talk about?
No, I mean, maybe. So we have the thorns, we have the leaves. Leaves towards the end of the summer turn a bright yellow.
Oh, yes.
And then they discard soon, so you'll have it for a flash, but that's a good way towards the end of the season, other than these giant gnarly pods hanging off, right? It's a good way for you to find where you're going to be finding these pods later on when they're fully ripe and whatnot. So I mean, that's a good identifier.
I mean, and even though I've been picking the pods off of the ground, you can look up in the sky at the tree, and a lot of these trees are still lousy with these bean pods.
For sure.
So it's a very easy tree to learn. Great starter tree, in my opinion. And you're going to find it all over North America.
Yeah, definitely.
Oop. All right. Shall we?
Yes, let's do it. All right.
Let me grab one of the medium. So I got this big one.
Yeah, I'm going to do big pod for sure.
I got medium pod. And then little pod.
So the pods themselves are like dark reddish, maroony brown kind of sitch happening.
When they're cleaner, they're glossy. Mm-hmm. These have a bit of a bloom on them, shall we say?
Yeah, if you polish them up a bit, they got a little bit of a gloss.
Yeah.
But just Michael's point earlier, so I have one that's probably about 14 inches long.
Oh, yeah.
It's about an inch, maybe an inch and a quarter, like wide. And then he also has other ones that are just like itty bitty, maybe like 6 or 7 inches long and maybe 3/4 inch wide. And the like even just breaking these open, I have a couple of the seeds sitting in front of me here, and they're just so different. Like some of them, one of them looks small, like a black bean. Another one looks more like a persimmon seed. You know, like just like bigger, more oval. Super cool. Let's try.
That's curious.
Adlarias.
The goo that's on the inside too. So what we're looking for whenever we harvest from these pods or when we eat from them directly, because there's a variety of uses that you can. I mean, it's sugar content on the inside of these. So there's one side of the pod is lined with beans, and then there's going to be a ridge on the other side that is that the beans aren't, and that is going to be filled with date-like goo for the most part.
Yeah, it's so interesting, that flavor, man. It tastes like tamarind, which if you've never had tamarind, it's another member of the pea family, and it's like sweet, it's like citrusy.
Yeah, right off the bat, it's very citrusy.
Yeah, so good, man. This is freaking tasty.
And there's not that much of it, so that's where you're going to find some differences in a lot of these cultivars that are roaming around. I think we're pretty lucky here in the Chicago area. We have some probably a remnant or a lucky trees that have a good portion of material on the inside, as well as a pretty high sugar content. Like they are sweet as heck.
Yeah, a lot of the cultivars, I mean, I saw that there are some that go as high as like 37% sugar, which is pretty substantial. And that a lot of the wild stuff is more in the like the teens, like the high teens.
So this big pod was very light flavor, light colored goo. I don't know if the word goo is appetizing, but paste, shall we say?
Yes,
maybe that's a little bit more culinary. The paste on the inside is lighter colored. It had a much lighter flavor, and actually, I'm getting some of the bitter tones that people are talking about. It's a bit bitter on the back end.
Big pod,
from the really large pod. Yeah. Now on the medium pod, I have already tried. I tried this earlier. And it's got like a much oranger. So this is the one that's only like maybe 6 inches long, an inch across. And it has a much darker oranger color to the paste. And it's just downright delicious. And what I like to do is, honestly, I don't oftentimes bother splitting open the pod. Sometimes I will. In my Instagram video, you'll see me do that. That's just to give it it gives it a really good visual. But if it's just me and I'm just hanging out or whatever, I'm breaking the pod in half and then squeezing my finger along the ridge of that where that paste resides. And basically treating it like a Go-Gurt.
Yeah, just like toothpaste that shit, basically.
Yeah.
You know?
And then just lick it off. And yeah, this one's so much more fruity.
But the flavor difference is nuts. So that the darker orange one, for sure, more like a tamarind.
Yeah.
I wonder what the difference is between that and these larger pods. Because this larger pod is lighter, but I feel like it's almost more, I get like, I don't know, like almost like pear notes from it. And I do get that bitterness a little bit afterward. But yeah. Super tasty.
Yeah. And I think that might have something to do with growing it for livestock. They're not trying to think of what it tastes like. They're just trying to get the biggest mass out of their production.
Sure.
So that's probably where the bigger pods came from. I think the medium one just happens to be, I don't know, they were all found in like business districts. So they were all planted by probably around the same people.
Yeah.
And not for feeding to livestock, but yeah. So how you can use this? What I like to do, I've done before, is basically get as much of it out as you can of a pod and dissolve it in a cup of warm water. basically, with some other herbs and nice stuff that's in there. And you can get like a really nice sweet tea.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Honestly, that sounds like a great application. I'm sure if you like wash these pods enough, you could do like I don't know, like a honey locust vinegar or some crap, you know?
Oh, easily, yeah. Oh, no, 100%. So I've read stories. I've had a little bit of trouble tracking down, but that like this was definitely a method of beverage production where you would basically just take the whole bean pods, because as you'll see in a lot of discourse among foragers, it is pretty difficult to get a usable amount of paste out of these beans. So with a lot of traditional foods, the question is like, okay, how did they make it worth it? You know, how did they do this? And a lot of times it's like, well, you know, there wasn't so much concern about sterility or, cleanliness, I guess, just to put it bluntly. So they were I can't imagine that they weren't, after a good rinse, just taking these pods and throwing them in a pot of water and letting osmosis do the work. Yeah. You know, a little bit of time and then sugar, you know, it makes itself at that point. And then you have this like crazy, like citrus flavored ale.
Yeah.
You know,
that sounds incredible. You should
so
try
that's just
that.
one of the historic uses I've heard of.
I'm sure there was some use for these seeds too, man.
100%. So we can speculate that in the second half, because there's a lot that there's just been written about that I haven't done personally, but a lot of people have said, well, like, yeah, it's supposed to be edible. So let's talk about that in the second half. Let's take a break and have a breath.
Okay, miss you. Bye-bye. Sigh.
What's wrong, buddy?
Well, I just realized this mushroom supplement I bought isn't actually made with mushrooms. It's made with something called myceliated grain?
Myceliated grain?
Oh, no!
I'm sorry to tell you, buddy, but myceliated grain is a sure sign of a poor quality mushroom supplement.
Well, dang. I wanted mushrooms, not brown rice. What should I do?
Well, you should support a small batch producer from right here in the Midwest. Keweenaw Apothecary.
Keweenaw Apothecary? Tell me more.
Keweenaw Apothecary specializes in high-quality mushroom extracts from Michigan, and they always use real mushrooms, never myceliated grain.
That sounds like exactly what I've been looking for. Where can I order?
Well, you can find them at keweenawapothecary.etsy.com. That's KEWEENAW apothecary.etsy.com. Be sure to read their many excellent reviews.
Thanks, buddy. I don't want no low-quality mushroom products from a factory. I want Keweenaw Apothecary.
Wowie wow! Wowie wow! We've got a new hot sauce for you.
It's so delicious.
It's spicy.
It's spicier for sure.
Spicier. It's called Harvest Moon, made with ghost peppers, American persimmons,
and spice bush berry.
It's gonna be great. We also have t-shirts available. Brand new t-shirts.
The best t-shirts, I think.
Baseball tees.
Scrumpers United.
If you've collected apples, if you've collected fruit, you're
welcome to the club.
You're welcome to a club. You're a scrumper. So check out our merch store, wildedibleworldpod.myshopify.com.
Wowie wow!
And we're back. Did you like that 3D action, listeners? I hope you did.
Spicy content.
So we did a little bit of research on the break. So you'll hear this from your parents and apparently the USDA.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the parts of the plant are toxic.
Unless you're a dog.
Unless you're a dog, apparently, which is like, okay.
Which
we couldn't track down any of the compounds that were toxic about it. So it's like...
Yeah, but there's several.
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Allegedly. So that's kind of shifty, and I can't remember specifically where I've seen it, but I know I've seen some like debate and discourse on like where what or where that science is from, or whether it's just anecdotal. A lot of this stuff is pretty anecdotal as far as its toxicity, and I think there's way more reliable anecdotal evidence on its non-toxicity and its food value. And I mean, it's a well-known livestock tree, so it's like it's not that toxic to them. Obviously, we don't have the same stomachs as cows and pigs, but I don't know. I choose to disagree, and I would recommend. It's for more anecdotal evidence. We'll pull up the comments in one of my most recent Instagram videos, where a lot of people were contributing a lot of their ideas and their uses for all the different parts of the plant. So Serenity Bee Products has mentioned putting fresh raw honey locust blossoms and white sugar.
That sounds fucking awesome.
Yeah. So start right there with the honey locust blossoms and sugar, and then cover it in a sealed jar. Leave it for a few days, and basically, I'm sorry, not a few days. It says a year. And then basically the moisture from the flowers will absorb into the sugar, and it'll melt, and you get a simple syrup, basically. And to which they say is sweet, incredibly delicate, a little tangy, vanilla-esque, and has an edible floral taste that is unlike anything else. Very interesting. Forage, Food, and Fodder also says that the spring leaves, the first leaves that come out, are very good eating, high food value, medicinally off the charts in their old antique botanical. Definitely plan on trying those this spring. Also, ginkgo leaves, when they're really young in the spring.
Yeah.
Oh, man. When they're like that bright lime green before they've gotten kind of tough, they are so sour. They're so good. And just like chopping up one or two of those and adding to your wild salad is a very cool idea. So
that's crazy.
I'll probably do the
never heard of that. I love ginkgos. They're such fascinating trees.
They're fascinating trees and sparingly edible.
Yeah.
So this isn't the ginkgo episode, but I will say, eat them with caution and do your due diligence. Humans should only have like 4 or 5 a day max.
Yeah. Shout out to ginkgos.
What else?
I mean, I think it just makes sense. Everyone, obviously, do your own research, make your own decisions. Nobody's forcing you to do these things, but they are absolutely fantastic. I think you'd be missing out not to.
Exactly, yeah. And just the amount of history we have. I've seen, like medicinal uses. This isn't a tree that's been deeply studied with modern sciences, but there's tons of indigenous science that goes back. And, the only records we really have of that are European colonizers interacting with them. But I have a few sources in my library that discuss, like, they would ask, like, oh, what do you use this for, like, medicinally? And they would say, oh, anytime my kid's whining about a stomach ache, I just brew some of this up, give it to him. It's a toothache, brew it up, give it to him. If he's got a headache, brew it up, give it to him. It was kind of a panacea because it was sweet. It tasted good. It is also probably comforting, and there's probably tons of medicinal qualities to it.
I'm sure boiling down one of these pods or some of these pods with water kind of pulls out some of that texture too, so it makes it a warm coating beverage.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sore throats and all that. Absolutely, of course, yeah. So how I plan on using this in the future, I'm going to continue using it in teas and scraping it out. I'm really interested in making like a fermented beverage with it.
Yeah, dude, I'm all about vinegars right now. Yeah. So I've got that persimmon vinegar, the apple cider that you made that I'm just about out of, and then a couple other ones I got going. I just started a new batch of kraut last night.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm definitely there's a tree right by the old jobby job that I'm gonna see if I can't vinegar.
Yeah, give it a slurp and see how good it tastes.
Yeah.
We would recommend you guys go out there and try them too, because they're really, really good. Very underrated tree, I think, in today's foraging. You're not going to find a lot of information about it. Even in Sam's, the primary reference for just about anything I try is going to be Sam's newest book, Edible wild plants of eastern North America. And even he has only ever tried the pods. And so here's an interesting thing that will allude to some sensitivities that some people might have that others don't. He did mention that he will eat them until his throat starts to tingle, and then he'll stop. But he's like, I'll go through handfuls of them before that happens. But he has eaten them to the point of, I don't even know if I would even call that an adverse reaction, but it's just something he mentions in his book. Like, they're highly edible. He says that he's heard of people eating the green pods, but he hasn't done it himself. So
Doesn't sound that good.
I bet they're fine.
Yeah.
You know, if you think about these like undeveloped sugars, I'm just not really sure like how you would use it. Yeah,
undeveloped sugar.
Usually not very tasty.
Yeah.
So I guess I mentioned earlier in the first half, like what the distinguishing characteristics between this and the only other lookalike, in my opinion, you find right now, Kentucky coffee tree. So let's nail that down while we still have time. Kentucky coffee tree pods are a lot thicker.
Yep.
So they're thicker, and you're going to find they're going to be the same size in lengthwise sometimes, just depend, like, you know, the variety of honey locust bean pods we have here, you're going to find some of the same size.
Yeah.
But the number of beans in the pod, I think, is probably the easiest way to distinguish it.
Yeah, for sure.
Kentucky coffee tree bean pods only have like 3 or 4 on average per pod, whereas honey locust...
Yeah, this sucker's got like probably 20-ish in here.
On one.
Yeah, that's wild.
So, yeah, a lot of these have 20, anywhere between, 1 to 20 seeds, and they're going to be much smaller in size, much thinner in package, too. So the bean pods are much thinner and flimsier. You can't handle Kentucky coffee tree bean pods like you can with these.
No, you can't.
Those are so stiff and rigid. These are flexible, bendy. They have a nice, delicious goo on the inside. Kentucky coffee tree bean pods at this time of year,
fibrous,
are bad.
Yeah.
So as far as other uses are concerned, I think so. The greens of the beans, the greens of the leaves. You can use it as a knife.
Yeah, I just almost fucking stabbed myself
Cut
in the
yourself
eye.
in the face. The bean pods, I believe you can also, whenever at this stage, whenever they're fully mature and they're brown, you can... Dang!
Yeah,
What?
buddy.
Steve just pulled off a ton. Yeah, and it was like a Go-Gurt. He just ran his thumb up the spine and just like pushed it all out the end and then onto his thumb and sucked it up. Dude, you got people that... We need to like do a video of that because a lot of people complain like they can't get anything usable out of the pod, and it's like, well, you probably have the wrong trees because if you do, he just got like 3 big servings, and those
from half of a pod,
and that the amount he had on his fingers alone would probably be enough to flavor like a whole gallon of tea. Like a little bit of flavor goes a long way with this stuff. It's awesome.
Delicious.
Damn, that was like really cool to watch you take that down. Take it to the dome.
Tasty.
Good. So yeah. All right. Okay. And now that we're at the end of our second half, I think I'll say the scientific name, which is the only thing I have written down in my notebook for this episode. And I still never said it. But that's because it's a kind of a silly sounding scientific binomial. Gleditsia triacanthos. Definitely sounds like a spell.
Yeah, our microphone just started floating for a second.
Yeah. But yeah, Gleditsia, Gleditsia. But yeah, it's in the same family as the
peas.
Yeah, the pea family, Fabaceae or something like that. So pretty cool. Hope you guys like this episode. If you like us, if you like our show, try and support us if you can. Buy our hot sauce, buy our t-shirts. We have a really cool scrumping t-shirt out that we still have plenty of prints for. You guys should definitely support it. and the hot sauce, which is really, really awesome. Persimmon and spice bush.
The hot sauce is insane.
The hot sauce is insane. Our hot sauce game is off the charts. And you guys, I think a majority of our listeners, we've gotten a lot of support from a lot of you guys. I think a majority of you are underestimating how good this freaking hot sauce is. And for the month, for the winter time, we've got it at a reduced price. It was just going to be January, but we're going to extend that a little bit. Hopefully some of you guys can try it. Free shipping at a certain amount. I don't know. I changed the deal on the website. So if you buy a few things, you should be able to get a reduced shipping rate and all that. We're trying to make it easy for you guys and still let you guys encourage you guys to help us out too. We have a lot of cool stuff in the works for this year. 2024 is going to be really fun for us. We have we're sponsoring a couple events. We'll be working together with maybe some nonprofits, and we have a really cool event. A couple cool events already booked. So,
heck yeah!
Earth Day. Is it the day of or the day after?
I think it's the day of.
Son of a gun.
We'll get you some deets.
We'll get the deets, but if you look forward to Earth Day, we have a walk at a Chicago suburb library, Romeoville White Oak Extension Library. Romeoville, Illinois. We'll be here doing like a cool walk and presentation. We'll have some snacks and some trail mix for you guys that we've made from a lot of the really cool foraged delicious stuff we've been able to find over the winter, and we get a chance to meet and greet and talk about plants. So thank you guys for listening. This has been a wonderful episode with you, Steve. Thanks for
always a pleasure, bud.
Listening to me wax poetic about honey locust. You're my honey locust.
Podcast.
Can you hear the Here we go. Podcasting. Thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
Love you, man.
Love you too, bud.
Love you guys. Have a great week.
Bye.
Bye. Wowie wow. We've got a new hot sauce for you.
It's so delicious.
It's spicy.
It's spicier for sure.
Spicier. It's called Harvest Moon, made with ghost peppers, American persimmons,
and spice bush berry.
It's gonna be great. We also have t-shirts available. Brand new t-shirts.
The best t-shirts, I think.
Baseball tees.
Scrumpers United.
If you've collected apples, if you've collected fruit, welcome
to the club.
You're welcome to a club. You're a scrumper. So check out our merch store, wildedibleworldpod.myshopify.com. Wowie wow!